Hello everyone, welcome to Lesson 2 of Destination Aviation Virtual Summer Camp. Each video will begin with a review of the materials you will need for the activities, a quick lesson, then we will end with several activities you can participate with. Now on to today's lesson. Today's lesson is all about flight operations. You will learn about the differences between controlled and uncontrolled airports, runway markings, and airport signs. You will also learn about the symbols on a sectional chart and different airspace classifications.
For today's lesson, you'll need a sectional chart from your summer camp kit, the large piece of paper from your kit, colored pencils or a crayon, and a pencil.
To begin our lesson, let's first take a look at the difference between controlled and uncontrolled airports.
There are two types of airport environments, controlled and uncontrolled. A controlled airport has an operating control tower. Because all aircraft in the area, as well as those on the ground, must follow the instructions issued by air traffic control, a two-way radio is required to operate in this controlled airport environment.
At an uncontrolled airport, air traffic control does not control the operations on the ground. Pilots are not required to have a two-way radio. However, pilots do use communication radios to transmit their intentions to other pilots. At an uncontrolled airport, you are responsible for determining the active runway and correctly entering and exiting the traffic pattern.
Now on to runway markings. Runway markings vary between runways. The beginning of a runway is called a threshold and is marked by two groups of parallel white bars and a runway number. A broad solid line across the runway will separate the threshold and a displaced threshold. Some runways have an area prior to the threshold marked with yellow chevrons, indicating a blast pad or a stopway. This area is not suitable for any type of ground operation and should only be used as a runway overrun or for emergencies. Some runways have an extended section of pavement leading up to the threshold, with large white arrows painted on the ground. This is called a displaced threshold and may only be used for takeoff or landing rollout. As the airplane goes down a runway during takeoff or landing, you may notice a black background sign with white numbers installed on both sides of the runway. These are the distance remaining signs and indicate how many feet in thousands are remaining before the end of the runway. Let's talk about some of the other signs that you'll see around an airport.
Major airports can have complex taxi routes, runways, and dispersed parking areas. Because of these complexities, most airfield signs are standardized to make it easy for pilots to identify taxi routes, directions, locations, holding positions, and boundaries for other critical safety areas.
Some signs indicate the directions of taxiways leading out from an intersection. Destination signs can also point the pilot to a location on the airport for services, such as fuel or parking. There are yellow with black letters and always have an arrow. They have black inscriptions on a yellow background and an arrow showing which direction to turn. Mandatory instruction signs denote an entrance to a runway, critical areas, and areas prohibited to aircraft. These signs are red, with white letters or numbers. Think about them like a red or white do not enter sign that you may see on a road. Location signs identify either the runway or taxiway where your aircraft is located. These signs are black with yellow and a yellow border. As you can see, there are many types of signs and markings around the airport that pilots use to know their way around and to help keep others safe.
Let's move on to sectional charts. These charts cover all of the 50 states, plus Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. They are your primary navigation reference and include topographic information, visual landmarks, and airport data. They are updated every 6 months, so you can either download them online or purchase the printed versions.
The scale of the printed sectional chart, like the one in your kit, is 1 to 500,000. This means that each inch on the sectional chart represents 500,000 actual inches. That is about 7 nautical miles or 8 statute miles on the Earth's surface.
There are a lot of symbols on a sectional chart. You can refer to the legend to help you understand them. We're going to show you some of the most common symbols, so let's get started. Use the chart provided for you in your kit to identify some of the symbols we review.
One of the most common symbols you will see scattered across the sectional chart is the airport symbol. It will appear as an open circle for other than a hard-surfaced runway, a closed circle with a line indicating the runway layout for a hard-surfaced airport. For airports of at least one runway longer than 8,069 feet, the symbol will appear as a line drawing of the airport layout. Sectional charts contain a lot of information to help pilots navigate using pilotage, which means using visual references. Some of the most helpful landmarks that pilots can use to navigate are roads, railroads, and power lines. Sectional charts give an extremely accurate depiction of where these are located, and they are often easy to spot from the air. Roads are depicted by a single gray line for a single road, and a double gray line for a divided highway. Railroads are shown as a black line with evenly hashed marks. Power lines are drawn as a thin black line with small tower symbols.
Other symbols that can be useful for navigating with pilotage include VFR waypoints, which are easy to see landmarks that air traffic control can ask you to report when flying over, pipelines, and rivers and lakes.
Sectional charts also depict where various obstacles and obstructions are located, such as towers and antennas. Sectional charts contain hundreds of symbols. We only cover some of the more common ones, so if you ever come across one like a windmill and you don't recognize it, look in the legend.
Now that you've learned about sectional charts, let's learn about airspace classifications. Controlled airspace is a general term that covers 5 of the 6 classes of airspace. Uncontrolled airspace is used to classify the 6th airspace.
To better explain, let's take a look at this 3D airspace image. Class A airspace is where most of the airliners fly. Because it does not reach the surface, it is not shown on the chart.
Class B airspace is busy. It surrounds the nation's busiest airports. These airports always have a control tower and a variety of other air traffic controllers to assist planes as they depart from or arrive to the airport. A 3D model of this airspace looks a lot like an upside-down wedding cake. On the chart, you can find this airspace with thick, solid blue lines. The altitudes are shown like this in hundreds of feet, with the floor and ceiling listed for each layer.
Class C airspace is busy, but not as busy as B. It surrounds airports that have operational control towers and are serviced by radar approach control. Similar to Class B, they look like an upside-down wedding cake, only with fewer layers. On the chart, you will find them with the thick, solid magenta lines.
Class D airspace surrounds airports that have both an operating control tower, but it's not as busy as B or C. You can identify Class D airspace on the chart by looking for the dashed blue circles.
Class E airspace is any controlled airspace that is usually associated with an airport without a control tower. This airspace may be located at an airport or above an airport, but does not reach the surface.
Class G airspace is airspace that has not been designated as Class A, B, C, D, or E airspace. In other words, it is uncontrolled airspace. Because it exists everywhere else, it's not actually shown on the chart with any lines or symbols. There are several types of special use airspace that pilots also need to know about. 2 important ones are prohibited and restricted areas. Aircraft are not permitted in prohibited areas. These areas are established for national security or defense. Prohibited areas are depicted by blue hashed lines labeled with a P, followed by a number.
Restricted areas are areas where unusual and often invisible hazards to aircraft exist, such as missile ranges and bombing ranges. While not completely prohibited from flying within these areas, it is subject to a restriction. Restricted areas are also depicted by blue hashed lines, but they are also labeled with an R followed by a number.
Great! Now it's your turn. We have 2 different activities that you can participate with us at home.
First, you can use SkyVector to find where you live. Ask yourself what type of airspace is at the surface where you live. What are the airspace classes that you would have to go through and at what altitudes in order to fly as a rocket from the surface traveling up to the atmosphere?
The next activity is for you to design your own airport. Be as detailed as you want to be. What services does your airport offer? Draw a 3D picture of the airspace surrounding your airport, or using materials around your home, build a 3D model if you'd like.
And you're also able to do this in Minecraft. The FAA currently has some information available on their website that teaches you how to do that in Minecraft and build your own airport.
That's really cool.
We really hope you've enjoyed today's lesson on flight operations, and we'll see you next time.